Good evening, everyone. My name is Dwayne Respis Palmer. This is my older adult training presentation video. The topic I will be discussing is social isolation and loneliness amongst older adults. I would like to thank you for watching my video, and I hope that you enjoy. So, you're probably asking yourself, why are we discussing social isolation and loneliness? You may even feel like, I have felt lonely before, so what's the difference does it make? Why is it important to the elderly population? I want to start by playing a video that talks about social isolation, the importance of it, and how social workers can affect change when it comes to the challenges elderly people face when dealing with social isolation and loneliness.
Social isolation is the most significant risk factor for people as they age. As we get older, as we survive, the people that we have shared our lives with don't always necessarily follow us.
There's a tremendous sense of loneliness that comes about when you lose the family infrastructure that might be around you. So here they are trying to deal with declines in health, um, dealing with the loss of a social structure, and have to work really, really hard to maintain contact with community, reduce isolation, and forge a way to live as full a life as possible.
When people become socially isolated, they become depressed, they become sad, and they are not able to take care of themselves well. They're not going to manage their chronic diseases. They're not going to participate in community activities. They're not going to do things with their family and friends.
The research has shown often depression and social isolation go hand in hand. So, not that every person who's socially isolated is depressed, but often people who are depressed are very socially isolated. Part of what we try to do is to help people adjust to loss, whether it's physical or social or emotional, and find places in their lives that they can feel like those losses are being replaced by something more enriching.
When people feel better about their lives because they feel healthy, they feel more energetic, they feel more active, they just feel more engaged, and they have a purpose for getting up every day, then life is much more participatory and people are happier.
A global challenge towards social isolation and loneliness among older adults heightened in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic. Older adults were told to self quarantine and shut themselves off from other people. Globally, nursing home residents were affected the most. While these restrictions were legitimate under this time, older adults' mental health status, such as experiencing social isolation and loneliness, took a toll. The difference between social isolation and loneliness is social isolation is a subjective state that is a direct result of having limited to no social relationships and infrequent to no social contact with people. Loneliness is a subjective feeling after having been isolated or restricted from seeing others for a period of time. So, who's at risk for social isolation and loneliness? According to Wu, 25% of older adults residing in the community have reported to being socially isolated. 50% of these community residents reported feelings of loneliness. Those who experience the loss of a loved one, changes in housing, such as going to a nursing home, lack of caregivers, decreased hearing and vision ability, residing in unsafe neighborhoods, diagnosed with depression, cognitive impairments, or psychological conditions are at the highest risk of being socially isolated or feeling lonely. Social isolation and loneliness can have significant impacts on the elder adult population. Everyone needs social connections to survive and thrive. Being alone may leave older adults more vulnerable to loneliness and social isolation, which can affect their health and well being. Social isolation and loneliness increases the risk for older adults to experience the following: high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol addiction, dementia, and death, sometimes at the cause of suicide. So, why is social isolation relevant to the field of social work? And this is a question that I pose to the class to have you thinking about what does it mean? Because sometimes you might not be able to see those signs, such as if someone is experiencing cancer or if someone is experiencing physical conditions. Social isolation can be more internal than external. So, what are we as social workers called to do to address this ethical challenge? The NASW Code of Ethics, um, as it relates to social isolation, I couldn't just pick one or two um, ethical principles to address this challenge that older adults face because I felt like all of them could address it. As far as social workers, they often find themselves on the front lines of elder care um, struggle and in a unique situated spot to spot problems as they develop. The NASW Code of Ethics has several principles which address issues that include social isolation and older adults and prepare social workers to address these issues on a micro, meso, and macro level. The first is service. Social isolation and loneliness is a major social problem among the elderly population. As social workers, we are to provide service to people in need and address social challenges as they arise. The Code of Ethics states a professional's goals, values, and a level of commitment should be to the public and to the community in which it serves. Social justice. The NASW Code of Ethics states that social workers are to propose ethical frameworks that will change issues that oppress and discriminate against individuals or groups. The social change social workers are to pursue should address ethical issues that are likely to arise and the means to deal with ethical dilemmas involving elderly and those who provide elder care, whether it's for professionals or family members. Dignity and worth of a person. Social workers are to treat each person with care and respect. For the elderly, ethics is about treating them how they want to be treated and allowing them to make their own decisions. Respect for individuals is a core value to social work practice and is no less so when dealing with the elderly. In fact, it may be even more needed because the elderly population at times are not usually able to stand up for their rights and decisions. Importance of human relationships. Because social isolation may limit the interactions an elder adult has with others, it's important for social workers to engage in the helping process and practice in a manner of consistency when providing services. Integrity. Committing to integrity in social work goes a long way towards building trust with seniors. After all, seniors are more likely to embrace interventions when they know their best interests are the social worker's top priority. Social workers can build trust and meet their ethical commitments by presenting themselves in a trustworthy manner. Competence. Social workers are to increase their knowledge of the barriers social isolation and loneliness causes and address those barriers with cultural competency and cultural humility. These are the ways that I feel social work core values connect to this ethical challenge. Evidence in research and interventions. So the research I found has also combined interventions when discussing social isolation and loneliness. In 2016, Gardner acknowledges that the evidence for successful interventions targeting social isolation and loneliness was weak. Gardner emphasized the rise of older adults reporting loneliness and social isolation, thus developing a wide range of effective interventions to tackle social isolation and loneliness, one of which is a group-based activity. Why is this important? As previously stated, the NASW Code of Ethics outlines the importance of human interactions. By facilitating social intervention, participants involved experience mutual benefits, decreased feelings of loneliness, and social isolation. To second that thought, the groups are particularly effective to older adults' mental health. The article by Pohl, Gardner, Flower, and Cooper that is provided to us during this course discusses the importance of narrative therapy and group work. Pohl, ETAL, states that for older people that experience loneliness and social isolation or live alone, group work fosters friendship, decreases the feelings of loneliness, promotes independence, and provides opportunities for mutual support. The authors of the study also concluded that if an elder adult is suffering from isolation combined with drug and alcohol misuse, narrative therapy and social support is considered key. A systemic review conducted by Hunt ETAL found consistent evidence linking cardiovascular medical conditions and mental health to social isolation and loneliness. The authors of this study recommended practitioners utilize Lubin's social network scale to detect early signs of social isolation. The conclusion of the article put the responsibility on policymakers and local government officials to consider social isolation and loneliness as prevalent factors that contribute to morbidity and mortality, and prevention should be developed across the public and private sectors. I included the Lubin scale for you to see. This one talks about the family. The scale is based off of 0 to 5. And this scale incorporates friendship. And again, it's based off of 0 to 5. The fourth intervention by Cowell and Duncan also examined the relationships between social isolation and loneliness to health outcomes present among older adults. Because loneliness is a subjective base off of emotions, Cowell and Duncan state that there is a direct link between loneliness and mental health outcomes. Because social isolation is objective and requires the connection and interactions with others, social isolation has a direct correlation with medical health outcomes being poor. The results and recommendations suggest that face-to-face interventions such as cognitive behavioral therapy, should be used to treat loneliness, and digital interventions such as improving access to transportation and providing information and communication can help reduce social isolation. I'm going to pause my presentation here because I'm running out of time. So I will I'll record a second part to this presentation. Thank you.